On December 14, 2012, a gunman shot and killed 20 first graders and 6 adults at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. In the aftermath of the tragedy, online conspiracy theorists falsely claimed the government staged the shooting in order to encroach upon gun owners' rights. The new book, Sandy Hook, An American Tragedy and the Battle for Truth, examines how those conspiracy theories spread. The author of that book and writer for the New York Times, Elizabeth Williamson, is now with us. Thank you for joining us. I want to start off by saying, Robbie Parker, she was one of the first parents of a child killed at Sandy Hook to speak publicly after the shooting. Can you explain how that appearance sparked an onslaught of conspiracy theories?
Sure, Jericka. Thanks for having me. So Robbie was the very first parent of a victim to speak publicly about his daughter, Emily, after she was killed. What was happening was the media was contacting his family, and they were really interested in learning a little bit more about her. He wanted that statement to come from him. So when he stepped to the podium, he was expecting to find really just one reporter, maybe two. Instead, he found a sea of microphones and cameras. And as he stepped to the lectern, he gave a sort of half gasp and half laugh, sort of in shock. And what happened was Alex Jones on InfoWars took that split second in what was otherwise an anguished and really heartbreaking conversation about Emily's life and used that to portray Robbie as someone who was an actor and was faking his daughter's death. He repeated that over the years many times. People seized on that, and they used that as a basis to attack him as someone who had profited somehow from the death of his daughter.
You know, it's so horrific when you think about how people would exploit the grief of a parent at this pivotal moment in our history where we had dealt with mass shootings before, but not with these little babies that were killed. And so why do you think then that these conspiracy theories spread so quickly? I mean, what did Alex Jones? I understand that people may be concerned about their civil liberties when it comes to the Second Amendment, but what specifically would a man like Alex Jones stand to gain from exploiting this parent's grief?
Vlad, in a word, profit. The court documents that have come out in recent, actually days, have shown that from 2013 to about 2016, Alex Jones had revenues of more than $50 million a year, selling products that were really tailored toward the paranoias and the fears of his audience. So diet supplements for people who distrust traditional medicine, body armor for people who are preparing for the coming civil war, the apocalypse, dried foods for doomsday preppers to put in their shelters. It's kind of a genius business model, except he's profiting from other people's pain, particularly people like the Sandy Hook families.
And I know you spent countless hours with the families of Sandy Hook victims. What was that like, and give us a sense of what the parents of the children who were killed experiencing when it comes to those falsehoods that were spreading all across the internet.
Yeah, Jericka, it was really hard to hear these families relive what were really the worst moments of their life, both, the deaths of their children and then the horror that came afterward as they were stalked, attacked, approached on the street, spied upon, and doxxed by these conspiracy theorists. But here's the thing, they are very hopeful that by telling me their stories, they can prompt some kind of a solution to the problem, the spread of disinformation online. And actually, we're seeing that right now. You see Lavrov and Russia accusing the pregnant, dying moms who are being evacuated from the hospital in Mariupol that Russia had bombed last week, calling them crisis actors. Mm-hmm. That originated Sandy Hook. That is part of a through line of disinformation that began with Sandy Hook as a foundational story and has extended to this very war and this day. So the families really want all of us not to look away. This is such a painful story of what they endured, but they think that by focusing us on what they've gone through and how they fought back, which is really a triumphant story, that maybe we can all get a little madder and start to push for some solutions to this problem.
You know, Elizabeth, as you're well aware, your colleague, Michiko Kakutani, wrote a book which I think sums up the age that we're living in right now. It's called The Death of Truth.
Wonderful book.
Yeah. And I wonder, you know, it makes me just think that if we were living, if the assassinations, for example, of Bobby Kennedy or Dr. Martin Luther King or Malcolm X had happened, if Emmett Till's murder had happened in the age that we're living in right now, you would see, to me, those horrific events in many ways brought about seismic change in this country, change for the better, right? Emmett Till's death specifically, as we're talking about, he was the catalyst for the civil rights movement. Everybody agreed when they saw that open casket. Everybody agreed when they saw dogs and fire hoses being turned on black people in the South that something needed to change in this country. But in 2022, things like that would be, you would find people like Alex Jones using the power of their platform to disseminate falsehoods and misinformation. And as you pointed out, there have been some legal victories in the aftermath of those falsehoods and that misinformation. But it, to me, seems like, I don't care how much money these families win, it will never make up for the grief and the suffering that they have gone through, not just the loss of their children and their family members, but also this.
Absolutely, Vlad. It is true that nothing can compensate them for what they've lost. But the bottom line here is that they are fighting and they have hope that by doing this, they can change the system, both in their, winning a $73 million settlement from Remington, the maker of the weapon that was used to murder these 26 people, to pushing for some kind of a policy solution and some kind of reining in of the ability or the willingness of these social media platforms to spread this kind of disinformation. There's not enough penalty for them for doing that. And, we've seen this, in Congress, Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower testifying. There needs to be something more done. And that's what these families hope to do through my book, just telling their stories to try and push people to get, as I said, a little madder and to push whether it's members of Congress or the platforms themselves for change.
Elizabeth Williamson, thank you so much for coming on and telling the story of these family members as you did in your incredible book. Everybody needs to read it to understand what has happened since then and what it portends for the future. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Elizabeth's book is called Sandy Hook, An American Tragedy and the Battle for Truth. It is available right now.